Hello everyone, this is just another little test video at my desk in the lounge because I'm trying to find the best place to do videos with you. So let's have a little play with a painting that's a bit too neat for my liking. This is inspired by the sweet peas in my garden. These are my watercolour pencils, and I'm going to show you how you can enhance a painting. Ready? As you may know, I'm a bit of a scribbler. But the good thing with watercolour pencils is you can mix them and you don't really know quite what's going to happen. So I'm just going to put a little bit of pink on here, magenta in fact, perhaps add some kind of a purpley colour like this one here, dark violet. I'm going to add a little bit of dark violet here to suggest shade. There we go. This paper is just a little corner of a Cass Art smooth watercolour paper. Using paper that isn't secured is not always the best thing to do, but because this is quite an illustrative painting without too much water added, I can probably get away with it a little bit. Right, we'll start with that and see how we go. It's not supposed to be botanical, it's just showing you how you can use watercolour pencils. I'm going to add a little bit more pink. I'm going to leave this here a bit lighter because it would be if the sun was catching it. In fact, let's add some rose pink. That'll give it a bit of a lighter colour, maybe just a little bit somewhere around there. Right, let's see what happens, shall we? This is why I like watercolour pencils, because you never know what's going to happen. This brush is a size 4 from Jackson's. I will put the information in the related content to this post. So I'm just gently agitating the pigment just to see what colour comes, and there we are. Now, there you go. You see, look at that, that's lovely. When you mix something together like that, you get some nice effects. Put a little bit of depth here as well. And you can also just carry some of that pigment on your brush as well. Sorry about this pile over here, I'll get to that in a minute. Same here, I'm leaving a bit of space there to give a little bit of definition. So to give contrast in your paintings, lightest lights, darkest darks. So we might come back and add a bit more contrast later. This paper doesn't really allow things to blend the way that some of my papers do, but it's fine just to show you how to work the watercolour pencils into a pigment. There we go, same up here. This little white line here, I actually put a line of wax there, and I used a birthday cake candle, because it allows you to make some nice fine lines. There we go. Doesn't really look like a sweet pea at the moment, but hey ho. There we go. Kind of look like some sweet peas. I think I probably need to put a bit more depth in. Right, next, let's see if we can make something nice and dark, shall we? Right, I like to mix my greens by putting a blue and a yellow down together. This is juniper green, which I don't know whether you can see. This is quite a greyish green, which sweet peas are. So the layer underneath is actually watercolour, and I do want this to be kind of hit and miss. Do you know what I noticed about some of the sweet peas in my garden? There's some really upright bits. Maybe that's a bit too upright. And also they have opposing leaves. So not one leaf, they have two leaves. So let's go for a little bit, not botanical, but a little bit more accuracy in some places perhaps. There we are. Mid one here too. By having different shades, different tones, like this greyish green, it is going to give more depth to the painting as well. Colours that are closer to you are going to be brighter. Can you see how that's already working to give it a bit more life? Right. So what I'm going to do now is, some of those need a little bit of variation. And this is sap green, which is quite a common colour in watercolour kits as well. Just a bit here and there for some variety. I quite like that now. So this is back to my favourite brush. This is the size 0 rigger from Cotman. And there we go. Just agitate it a bit. Yeah. Yeah, so I haven't really got much else to say. I'll just do this, and it's a bit of a mistake there, but I'll leave it because you never know, it might do something nice with the colour. Can you see how I'm just dragging a bit of that pigment across to indicate a second leaf? And yeah, and yeah. So, can you see? Now we have some variety in the greens. This brush, try to do this so that you can see actually. It allows you just to be, because it does its own thing, so you can be really free. I wish I hadn't done that bit. I might. Let's just make it a bit more squiggly. When you're painting, sometimes if you turn it around, look at it from a different angle, you get a better idea of the painting and what needs to be finished. This one needs to be left to dry for a bit. Although actually, I think the flowers are pretty much done. Can you see how using this brush really fast just lets you push the paint around without making it too perfect? There we go. We'll leave that alone for a bit. While it's drying, I'll put that to the side, and I'm going to just talk to you about making colour swatches. So these are from my Intense pencils actually, which are water-based pencils, they're dry pencils that you can add water to, and they become permanent when you make them wet, when you activate them. And it's really good if you want to do, depending on your style, you might be someone that just wants to be quite impressionistic and just put down, you know, pure colour next to each other rather than lots of layers, in which case something like this is really useful. I mean, this is useful anyway, so that you know you know, which tones are warmer and cooler, so which ones might sit better going into the background of a picture. Especially, I'm talking about landscapes really, I suppose, so that's what I tend to do quite a lot of. And the same, you know, if you're walking around your garden, you could take this outside and compare it to some flowers in your garden and see which one's best to capture it. Obviously these are great for seas. This is really my favourite bit of it. So that's the Inktense pencils. And these down here I use if I'm doing animals, especially like dogs like Rottweilers and things like that, like that have got the black and tan. These are really useful to have for that purpose. So I'll pop that over there. This one here, these are the colours from my Graphitint pencils. They're slightly different, they're kind of greyish, perfect for the English countryside and landscapes. Greyish tones rather than bright Mediterranean ones. But some beautiful colours in there. These are slightly different because they have, as suggests in the name, a graphite element. So they behave a bit differently, but they're just lovely to experiment with. This paper is handmade cotton rag paper that I get from a place in Corsham, which is just outside Bath, so it's not too far away from me. Very absorbent, quite difficult to manage, but I love it. So I'll give you a link to that too. Inktense pencils again. This is Fabriano paper. It's very, very smooth, so you can see how it behaves differently when it's put on a different background. So can you see there's hardly any texture at all? I don't know whether you can see that. And that's me just playing around with normal pencils just to see what the surface of the paper's like. It's when you start practicing your art more, you'll find that playing with different materials, surfaces, brushes, different types of paint, you know, you can buy, for instance, a ultramarine blue from 4 different companies and it will all be slightly different shades, so it's worth experimenting and coming up with your own favourites. And again, that's another doggy one that I've done for dog samples. And here, this is a crumpled piece of cartridge paper with a boat on it, and that's just dry pencil. Now this painting here is one of my favourites. It's on the Cass art paper, the same as the sweet peas I was just doing. The sky I did in a watercolour, just a loose wash. In fact, the whole of the background was done with washes of loose watercolour. And then I've gone in with watercolour pencils, Inktense pencils, and I've also used some of my oil-based pencils, my light fast pencils, to get some definition in the trees. And then these whites, I've got something called Neo Colour 2, which are made by Karan Dash, and they are crayons that you can add water to. Fabulous, but also good for adding highlights to paintings. Okay, nearly there. This one here, this is, as you can see, I taped off a border on here, which I like to do if I'm doing a landscape because it gives it a natural frame. This is done, all of this, if you can see, is layers of watercolour pencil. I'm going to show you how to do this because it's obviously a very, very light suggestion of colour, but it's the tones and the depth that make the painting. So it's more greyish on the horizon, and then the lovely warm colours here. This is actually inspired by Morlaix Bay in Brittany, funnily enough, as is this one. Finally, this one is a slightly bigger one. It's on the handmade paper again, and what I did with this one, I scribbled over here with my wax, I like to put a few verticals in because it adds like just a bit of depth. So I put random scribbles of crayon, or it's not crayon, wax, on the paper before I add any plain paint. I think the sky, the initial wash was watercolour, and then I went in with watercolour pencils. And then I just blobbed paint on here really. And it does need another layer, which I'm going to do with my watercolour pencils. But again, you can see the effect you get from using a rough surface on some paper. And also this paper being very absorbent, it flows very differently. It's the same colours used. That's a lovely smooth wash because it's just all blended together. And here you get more definition from the clouds. So that goes to show you why that's actually a really good example of, that's pretty much the same colours and the same techniques, but used on a different surface. Yeah, so that's all of those examples. I'm going to go back to my back. The sweet peas. Still not really happy with these, so I think what I'm going to do is let them dry completely because they're still quite wet, and go in with some highlights and some contrast as well, I think, to bring it to life. So I will come back to this later. I think it was just a good example of showing you how you can scribble a little bit with your pencils. Yeah, I'll come back to that one later to finish it off. One more thing I'm going to show you. This is a really easy technique. So this is actually it's actually a very heavy cartridge paper. This is a water resistant pen. So for instance, what you could do is draw, I don't know, have a little horizon line, a bit of an island, maybe a building or two down here, a bit of scribbling. Perhaps you've got a beach down here. Okay, which way's the light coming from? I think we'll have the light coming from this side. So this side's going to be in the shade a little bit. Bit of shade here, maybe a few little lines. Okay, it doesn't look like much at the moment, does it? Okay, right. I'm going to give that a minute. Cartridge paper, not really ideal for painting on, but if we use really light scribble of watercolour pencil like this, I like painting miniatures, by the way, they're just fun to do. So where's our focal point here? So I'm going to make the direction of the sky kind of point towards the land there. Okay. Then a bit of green perhaps. This is a cedar green. Okay. Just like the colour. Right, so just add that. I could leave it like this as dry pencil. I think that's going to be too dark, yellow, to bring it into the foreground. And perhaps we can use, the same cedar green on this. Let's imagine there's a little grassy island or something here. Probably be some kind of sandy thing happening, like this. And we need a lighter colour as well to bring it to life. Raw sienna. Oh, that's blunt. Oh dear. Sorry about that. No, I had golden brown. Right, what's that one? It's a bit orangey. That's okay though. Right. And then of course it's the sea. We need to do the sea. So let's choose Kingfisher Blue. A little bit in the sky as well, just to bring it together. I think it needs a bit of a darker blue as well. Indigo. Not too dark though. Alright, there we go. It's a really little sketch, tiny piece of paper, but now I'm just going to show you what you can do. Only a little bit of water because this is cartridge paper. Right, and just agitate it a little bit like that. This one, like that. Actually, I'm going to bring some more colour here. Bring the sky to life a bit. Again, can you see how it doesn't blend because it's cartridge paper? It's going to go, might go a bit creased as well. And then finally the sea. It's not perfect, needs a bit of work, but it's an example of what you can do with your watercolour pencils. Right, there we go. I'm not going to be able to leave that alone. I need a bit of dark on this side too, but not too much. And maybe down here too. Right. There we go. 2-minute watercolour pencil sketch. There we are. I don't know which way the camera is. There we are. Easy. Bye for now.